Hello guys, and we are here today with another very awesome video. We are here today with a pure Odd Eyes deck profile. Well, this isn't technically pure. We are running a Magi Spectre and one Draco Slayer. But nonetheless, this is the deck that I think is going to be the most competitive deck. Yes, I do believe this is the most competitive deck. And I have seen some Magician Pals. I have seen some Rescue Pals that run Rescue Rabbit and then the Draco Slayers and all that stuff. And I feel this is the best deck, the format, because with those decks you're mixing and matching these different pendulum decks and they work pretty well. I will admit it, they work pretty well. Like Rescue Rabbit works well in those decks, and Draco Slayers work well with Perform Pals, with Magicians, with all that stuff. But then in the end it always gets, and you'll end up with those hands where they just don't mesh well. You're trying to get key cards, like Yu Turtle doesn't do its stuff if you have Dragon Pulse, or if you have one of the Draco Slayers, the Draco Overlord, Vector, or the normal Draco Slayer guy. And so this is just it. This deck is going to always be itself, its face value, while those decks, those Draco Pals, you're gonna have hands where you do this thing, and then you're gonna have hands where you do this thing. This deck, I feel, is always gonna be just simple and easy, and it's still very powerful. It's still a pendulum deck, and not only that, it has access to a great toolbox of the extra deck. Like, look at this extra deck. You have purple, white, and black. You do not see decks that have this stuff that often. Granted, though, Konami kind of made this, but I mean, we have the Nodin. We actually have its own fusion monster, which you fusion summon. We only run one Odd Eyes fusion, only because Vortex is just that good. And then you also have XZs, including some of the big, giant rank 7s, and then some normal rank 4s, and then a whole bunch of synchro monsters. So this deck, I feel this deck is really good. It has great toolbox in the extra deck. I mean, it has as far as removal goes, it only has 101 and Castell, because I really wanted to run Tsukiyomi, because I love Tsukiyomi. It's draw power, guys. It's draw power. And yeah, and then with the fusions, of course, granted though, you can only make this guy with having Luster Pendulum. Once you get him out, once you see him, you're gonna see him. Of course, you're gonna try to make this guy first, and then you want to make this guy. We are not running the XZ, although he does search and he does help out. There just isn't room. But I'll get onto the extra deck and everything later. Let's just go into the deck profile. We're running triple of the dragons, spellcasters, because we kind of want these scales, and having extra level 4s and extra level 7s help out with making our rank 7 and our rank 4 plays. If you want to tone these down to 2 apiece, that is your prerogative, and go ahead and do it. I just feel it would be nice for the extra consistency, and it helps with your Sky Iris, being able to pop those cards and not really having to worry about it. Although Dragon Pulse, is actually very poppable, because you can always replace them with Oath Dragon, which you run 2 of. So for your low scales, you have 2 plus these 3 that you really want. You want either Dragon Pit or Oath Dragon in there, preferably actually Oath Dragon. We're running 2 Oath Dragons because you want to have 1 to Pendulum Summon, 1 to have in your Pendulum Zone, and then you have all of your rank 4s, and you can add back stuff every time you Pendulum Summon, and so yeah. And so yeah, that is why we're running those, although, because, well, this guy, there's only, I don't think there's anything other that's greater than 7. Yeah, you need to run this guy, because you need to run this guy at 3 if you want to Pendulum Summon Odd Eyes. And then of course running Odd Eyes, because he can search out the majority of our deck. He cannot search out Dragon Pulse, he cannot search out Oath Dragon, he cannot search out Joker, or, oh golly, this is a lot of actually. All he can search out is Dragon Pit, Wisdom Eye, and Noble Dragon. That's not a lot. Actually, that's only 9 cards, but nonetheless, he's still very useful for getting those extra cards when you need them. And then Oath Dragon is always here, like, yeah, let me just add you 1 Magician or Odd Eyes back to your hand, so you can ditch it for one of these guys' effect to destroy a monster or destroy a spell, which is very useful. And one of the reasons why I think this deck is so good is because back row, strike, this deck has an easy out, and it's named Noble Dragon. You can go plus off of that. Not only do you destroy your opponent's strike, you also can set up for future plays. And this guy helps get them back. If you Pendulum or normal summon him, you can just add it back to your hand, so really good. And also having the level 6s in the deck when it comes to Oath Dragon and Kieran If you're having dead XZ monsters such as Tsukiyomi or Castel, and you have nothing better to do with them, you can always just normal summon this guy, especially with Kirin, because you can then use Kirin's effect to bounce one of your opponent's monsters, and by targeting one of your pendulums, which works really well with Joker. And so, being able to bounce, and then you can then go for another pendulum summon and have him again on the field. Although you can only use his effect to bounce once per turn, here you can use it during your opponent's turn, of course, to bounce as well. And then, of course, Luster Pendulum, if necessary, you can use him as a scale, either to go for a level 7 play by setting an 8, and then you can summon 6s and 7s, or you can set a lower scale and be able to go for a rank 4 play. Although you really don't want to have him as your scale, you want to have him on the field so that way you can make your Draco Slayer, your Ignisters, and your Dinoster, and yeah. And then of course running one Joker, and this deck can put him back. Like I said, you can already get him back with Oath Dragon if he gets into the graveyard. No, can you? Oh no, you can't. You can balance him with Kirin, or you can shuffle him back into the deck with Vortex Dragon. As once I get onto Vortex Dragon's effect, I can't believe you can't add him back with... but nonetheless, those combos, although they're rare, still occur, and hey, being able to use this card more than once is very useful. But then again, Wisdom Eye is at 3 still, and Wisdom Eye is what makes this deck, because you pair this up with pretty much any other scale, and you can at least get something out. If you have this card, okay, you can choose to make a low scale or a high scale. If you have this card, you can then go and make a all scale. You can get out your Dragon Pit. It's still a perfect card no matter what you draw into if you have this card, and it's searchable again by him and by Odd Eyes. So this guy is just amazing getting your scales placed, and that's really, really nice. And we're running 3 normal dragon. And I was running it at 2. In fact, in the majority of the videos you're going to see tomorrow, I only run her at 2. I put her to 3, and I put the upstarts in because, again, in the majority of the videos you won't see these upstarts. It helps the deck out a lot. Like, having her at 3 is a must, I have to say. You think it would clog, but it doesn't. Because, again, if you have it, and as long as you can get your scales out, I mean, granted though, you have to have another magician, which isn't that difficult, seeing how if you don't have this guy, you either have this guy or this guy. And I mean, you're talking very low chance of you not having a decent scale with another magician. You can then use her to pop stuff and then just wait until you get an Odd Eyes, which is pretty easily because you have a card that can search Odd Eyes, so you technically have 6 cards to get to your Odd Eyes. So Normal Dragon works amazing in this deck. Because, well, it's a magician, and it just helps having her at 3 because then you have those tuners and you can constantly just ditch them and ditch them and ditch them and add them back to your hand, pendulum summon with them, synchro summon with them, do all that fun stuff. And then of course running only 2 Maxi because the Monarchs are getting played a lot and they are very, very powerful and very useful. You can get a possible +2 with this card against Monarchs, although they're not going to give that to you. They're not going to go Erebus into Idea, into Erebus, into Aether, into something else. They're not going to do all those special summons unless they absolutely have to. They'll probably go for something else, and most likely you're going to be doing this on an Idea that's normal summon to get you an Erebus, and so you just draw 1 card. So you'd probably be best to side this out. Either if you're one of those people that DP Yu-Gi-Oh hates, you could side in Magical Reef. Whatever it's called, Magical Reef. I can't pronounce it. The card that lets you draw 2 off of Pandeity when your opponent activates it. Anyways, so yeah, only 2. Though, put the other one in the side deck because if you go up against Mirmatch or Draco Pals or any Pepe variant, you can just run at 3 and then drop it and have it. And it really, really messes with those decks because then they can't explode because unless they... Granted though, it's still an empty threat. Remember that, it's an empty threat. We don't have any effect failures, anything else, so either they're going to OTK you and you're not going to be able to stop it. You're just going to draw a whole bunch of cards. Or they're not going to be able to OTK you and they're not going to make a big play, and then you'll be able to OTK them. So again, just be wary with the Maxi. Of course, we're running Instant Fusion because you can get back Noble Dragon Magician and go for a Synchro Summon, or you can go for a rank 4 play, although again, we're not running a lot of rank 4s, you can only make 1/1 or Castel with it. Or if you have nothing better to do... No, that wouldn't work, you'd still have to XZ Summon. If you node in a Pendulum monster from your graveyard, it gets back to the field and then it'll go to your extra deck. That's what I was thinking, but there would be no way to do that except through XC summoning with your Norden. because if you synchro summon with him and this guy's on the field, like if you spell summon out Winstomai with Norden and you synchro summon with Noble Dragon and Norden, this guy gets banished. Oh well. And then we're only running one Odd Eyes Fusion. That's kind of upsetting because you might not be able to make Vortex, and Vortex is really, really good. But there is a second way to make Vortex that is a little bit easier and almost a little bit better even. But nonetheless, it's still there because it's easily searchable off of Sky Iris, and it can save you. Like, you can do plays with this card because if your opponent controls 2 monsters or more and you control no monsters, you can use up to 2 Odd Eyes monsters in your extra deck as fusion material. We are not running Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, unfortunately. I cannot find the room in this in the extra deck. If you did, then you could use 2 of the Odd Eyes, such as Absolute, or maybe this guy. You'd want to use Meteor Burst Dragon probably, and then the Odd Eyes Rebellion, and then you could then fusion summon Vortex Dragon. Because of that, if you have this card, you do so. But because we're not running Odd Eyes Rebellion, you have to have one other Pendulum monster in your hand, or or unless you have an Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon in your extra deck, then you could use that as well. But that is a little bit unfortunate. If you can find the room for an Odd Eyes Rebellion, then go ahead, put it in. You could take Tsukiyomi out, but draw power is so amazing. I love it, even though you don't get it all for that time. Or you could take out maybe Star Eater if you really don't like Star Eater. I don't know why, because it helps out a lot. Pendulum Call. This is another reason why I think this deck is so good. Pendulum Call. Because it's free, discard 1 card. That's what makes it so amazing. Discard whatever the hell you want. And so as long as you have 2 cards in hand, this being one of them, you can create any scale. You can get this scale out and then boom, bada bing, bada boom, you're done. You're ready to go. You can make your play. Not only that, it can be Wavering Eyes. Your opponent, neither player can destroy those Magician cards, which does affect Wisdom Eye, as you cannot search him out and then destroy him and then summon him back out. But nonetheless, he can't be Wavering Eyes, so your play, that's one back row that your opponent might have face down that doesn't get through. Not only that, if you're going first and you activate this and you make your scale, and then your opponent goes and they make their scale and they activate Wavering Eyes, it's still an effect. It doesn't go back into your next turn, so you don't have to worry about second turn Wavering Eyes plays where they get to banish stuff. Instead, you get to do that, because if you have your Wavering Eyes, you can chain that, although again, you wouldn't be able to banish anything, because nobody can destroy those Pendulum monsters, those Magicians. So this just protects against those huge plays that Draco Pals and those other decks will lose to in the mirror match with those 2 decks playing against each other, because they'll make their scale and then their opponent go make their scale, boom, Wavering Eyes, and then they're at a huge disadvantage at that point. But this deck is like, no, you can't Wavering Eyes me, brah. No Wavering Eyes. Upstarts, of course, for more consistency, definitely helps out. There is no downside. You can always discard it for Pendulum Call if you have nothing better to do, although the targets who want to discard is Noble Dragon, and of course you can discard any of the Magicians and get them back with Oath Dragon. Wavering Eyes, again, it's just Wavering Eyes. Twin Twister, again, discard targets would be technically any Magician, but you'd want Noble Dragon, as again, you can get them all back with Twin Twister, as well as Odd Eyes. Because even Odd Eyes has 2 ways to get back, again, Oath Dragon and then Absolute. And of course, getting rid of your opponent's back row is a necessity. And then Sky Iris is really good because it allows us to do combos with Oath Dragon, maybe. Get rid of cards on our field, such as dead XZ monsters that aren't doing us anything. Or get rid of dead skills, like when we want to replace them. Maybe we drew into a Dragon Pit. You can always destroy the one you have on your field and add an Odd Eyes card, such as Odd Eyes Fusion or Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, Odd Eyes Rebellion, Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, and then boom, bada, you have everything you go. And this video is getting quite long, guys. Do forgive me. And of course, we're finishing this off with 2 strikes and a warning. I wanted to have more room for the upstarts, and of course, this is already 5,000 points, and you see these cards enough. Like, it does hurt consistency a little bit. You might not have the back row, but you're not going to get off all 3 anyways. For the extra deck, Dino Stir protects your Pendulums. Vortex Dragon, negate a card and then take a face-up Pendulum monster and shuffle from your extra deck and shuffle it into your extra deck, which means if you have nothing in your extra deck, you cannot use this effect to negate, unfortunately. But again, it allows you to do combos where you can put back your Skullcrobat Joker, put back your Wisdom Eyes, or maybe your Dragon Pits if you're running low on him. So definitely very, very useful. Norden, of course, to summon stuff out. Star Eater, because he cannot be striked. That's amazing. and he's unaffected when he attacks. So if you're facing one of those new meal forces such as Barian, which some people might run, he can get around that pretty easily. And of course, Ignister running Michael, which can only be made with these two cards, Wisdom Eye and Noble Dragon. But nonetheless, paying 1,000 lives to banish isn't an awful thing. Granted though, you do have to send top 3 cards of your deck to graveyard during each of your end phases, although if you're making this guy, you can banish back row and get rid of your opponent's scales for permanently. So, if you're making this guy, you have a good setup. One Meteor Burst Dragon, because he isn't that useful, all he does is summon up one of your Pendulum monsters, such as this guy who's level 7, this card's a level 7, and bada bang! You can then go and make a rank 7. Clearing, because yeah, negate stuff. Negating stuff is good, especially monster effects, especially Ignister. And then Black Rose Dragon, because, well, blowing up the field is blowing up the field when you can do that. Although you will get rid of your own scale, it is still very useful. Excitement Knight is banned for a reason. If you don't really like it, if you don't want to destroy your own scale, you can always run Moonlit, which doesn't blow up back row, but it does get rid of monsters. And for the Xyz Absolute Dragon, which negates an attack and then special summons an Odd Eyes, which can get back Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon from your graveyard. Or Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, or if it's destroyed afterwards Xyz summoned, you can summon one Odd Eyes monster from your extra deck, such as Vortex. So if this card doesn't go through, it gets negated, whatever, you can always make this guy, have this guy get destroyed, and then it floats into this guy. And this guy also has the other effect that when it is special summoned, target a face-up attack with your monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand. So really great ways to get rid of a lot of your opponent's monsters and get out, do a lot of damage right away. And then of course Draco Sack and Big Eye for more rank 7s, of course being able to do that on Ignister is always good, or just being able to get rid of your opponent's scales after you attack with 2 Odd Eyes is really good. And then 101 Castell just to clear more back row, and then Tsukiyomi, discard your entire hand and to draw 2 cards, which is really good because you have plenty of cards to discard. You have your Magicians, which you can always get back, and then your Noble Dragon and Magicians would be the ones you'd want to. And yeah, just that extra draw power is very useful, especially for a deck. And god, this is a long video. So I'm gonna cut it here, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile. Dang, it's long. Tell me guys what you think of this deck. It shouldn't be this long. Getting all worked up in this. See you guys later. Bye.